And I want first to inform the members that we are free to sit anywhere for today. Honourable members, you do recall that during the budget speech, the President requested for an opportunity to address the country through Parliament on the state of security in this country. And this meeting is convened. This meeting is convened under Article 1012 of the Constitution, which provides that the President may, in consultation with the Speaker, address Parliament from time to time on any matter of national importance. I therefore wish to welcome Your Excellency the President of the Republic of Uganda, Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, and the Fountain of Honor. I'm sure honourable members and the country at large are eagerly awaiting for the presidential address. But before I invite the President, I want to just draw your attention to Rule 10 and two parts of Rule 10. One, that while the President occupies the chair of state, he may make a presidential statement which shall be heard in silence and not followed by any comment or debate. Rule 10.4.2 states that the President shall not participate in the proceedings of the House in any way. Your Excellency, this rule inhibits our interaction with you. Therefore, on behalf of the House, I want to request that a time should be found when we can have a free meeting with you to discuss, to have an exchange on the issues of security in a different arena. Your Excellency, I now invite you to address the country.
His Excellency the Vice President of Uganda, the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament, the Right Honourable Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Deputy Prime Ministers, Honourable Ministers, the Right Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. Right Honourable Speaker, I have got a very good meeting hall at Entebbe, Government State House, so you are welcome, all of you, to that in case you are allergic to State House, in case you have got some allergy when it comes to State House, we have also got a nearby hall here in this parliamentary building. We can all meet there and interact freely from those restrictions which you put on yourselves. So for me, I'm available, I have no problem. And the Right Honourable Speaker, I've decided to use the rights of the President under Article 101, Clause 2 of the 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda to address Parliament. I'm exercising this right in order to sensitize the members of Parliament and the public about defeating challenges of insecurity. In the early years of the NRM government, I visited the area of Busoga. It could have been Luoka. As part of the entertainment for me, one of the dance groups performed an Emandwa dance. The Basoga were calling that dance the Baswezi dance. Emandwa were spiritual mediums that people in a large part of the Great Lakes worshipped and appealed to convey their supplications to Ruhanga Nyamuhanga or Katondo Wobutonzi or Lubanga in Luo, which all means God, the Creator. The spirit mediums were not God themselves. They were intermediaries between the people and God. What is interesting is that these spirit mediums were originally human beings. The dance I witnessed in Luuka was called Baswezi, dance by the Basoga. This would be Bachwezi in Buganda, Bunyoro, Toro, Ankole, Karagwe, Bukoba, the last two are in Tanzania, and even Eastern Congo. I have not checked as to whether it spread to Rwanda beyond the Mtara region, which was part of Mpororo Nkore before colonialism or not. These were generations of people that had succeeded in bringing stability to this part of the Great Lakes. Excavations at Ntutsi and Bugobya Mjenyi, these are in Zimbabwe, have shown that those sites were being used by these people between 900 AD and 1500 AD. Dr. Sutton John of the British Archaeological Society in 1998 revealed that there were huge settlements at those sites by 900 AD to 1500 AD. The names of these Bachwezi that stand out are Wamala, Mugasha, whom the Baganda call Mukasa, Mulindwa, Ndahura, or Ndaula as in Uganda, Kagoro, Isimbwa or Simbwa, Chomia. That name of Chomia, I find it in Busoga mainly. According to the oral history of this area, it seemed that these people had succeeded in uniting under one kingdom much of present-day Uganda. Bunyoro, Toro, Ankole, Buganda, Busoga, Lango, what we call Buchiri. These people on this side of the Nile, the historical name of Lango is Buchiri. Or Bukedi, some people call it Bukedi, but it is Buchiri. Acholi, chiefdoms, which are called Gani traditionally. Buhaya, Karagwe in Tanzania, Rwanda, and the Hema chiefdoms of Eastern Congo, Bunya. When that dynasty collapsed, for reasons, that unity brought peace and stability and prosperity to the region for maybe 500 years. When that dynasty collapsed, for reasons that are not clear, the area was taken over by the smaller kingdoms that we found in place in our time. These are the kingdoms of Buganda, Bunyoro, Toro, Nkore Mporero, Busoga chiefdoms, Lango chiefdoms or Buchiri, Achori chiefdoms or Gani, Buhaya and Karagwe in Tanzania, Rwanda, and the Hema chiefdoms of Eastern Congo in the area of Bunya. These little kingdoms, run by egocentric and tyrannical kings and chiefs, fomented endless wars and insecurity for 400 years until the area was taken over by the British, the Germans, and the Belgians following the conference among the European imperialists in Berlin in 1884-85, where the mismanaged Africa was partitioned like a cake, each one of them taking a portion or portions of the defenseless territories. The incompetence of the traditional leaders having been finally confirmed by reality. The imperialists fomented their own wars of global conquest, into which our people were sucked in fighting other people's wars in the form of the First and the Second World Wars. Extrajudicial killings became rare in many parts of the country. However, Karamoja and Turkana in Kenya were never pacified. During the time of the kings, the armies were very indisciplined. That was part of their weakness, and that was one of the reasons they were defeated by the foreigners. To take one example, Henry Morton Stanley, passing through what would you call it? Henry Morton Stanley, passing through the Bunya area of Congo in 1889, wrote as follows of the Kabalega army. As you know, that Bunya is in Congo, but it is inhabited by Banyoro-speaking people and other Alurs and other people who are part of our system here. So this is what Stanley wrote in 1889 when he passed through that area. In quotes, "We have formed a confederacy on the plateau embracing all the region from the Ituri River to the Nyanza." Nyanza is, of course, he was not able to pronounce these things properly, but Nyanza means Nyanja, in Runyoro, Nyanja, meaning Lake Albert. He's talking about Lake Albert. They formed, embracing all the regions from the Ituri River to the Nyanza, for protection granted them against the marauding Balega. Balega is the name we give Congolese. We, the indigenous people of this area, traditionally we call the people of Congo Balega. That's why you hear Kabalega. Kabalega. Kabalega, I think his mother had something to do with Congo. And the Warusura of Kaba Rega. The chiefs agree to supply us with contributions of grain and cattle and to surrender the government of the country into my hands, into the hands of Stanley. To raise fighting men whenever ordered, and to assist me in invading Unyoro should retaliation for invasion of their soil by the Warusura render it necessary, end of quote. This portion is found on page 147 of Stanley's book entitled In the Darkest Africa, Volume 2. The British invaded Bunyoro Kitara to control resources of the kingdom. We shall see evidence in the records of the agents of Britain who massacred large numbers of Banyoro. Lugard had estimated in 1893 Banyoro to number over 2.5 million people. He wrote, Unyoro is probably more populous than Uganda, meaning Buganda, and Ankoli, meaning Ankole, about equal to it. Danba estimates the population was reduced to 400,000, from 2.5 million to 400,000. This part of yours, this part called Uganda, has had a lot of problems. First of all, we had the chiefs fighting among themselves. That one I quoted, and very indisciplined. You see how, in the other quotation, the Stanley is jubilating because the tribes, the Banyoro tribes on the Congo side, have joined him to fight Kabarega because Kabarega soldiers were always misbehaving, looting and so on and so forth. That's what the quotation is saying. The Barusura were because of indiscipline. Now, after that problem of the chiefs, then we come to the British themselves. They come with their own problems. And you see what they are talking about here. Population of Bunyoro. Today, Banyoro are only 1 million. Today, people you call Banyoro are only 1 million. But in 1893, there were 2.5 million, according to Lugard. So that whole population was reduced because of the British and their army. When Uganda was subdued, the British colonial army was more disciplined and was rarely seen in public. This one I know because you know what you call history, you people, I call current affairs. Because I was there. So, after independence, this former colonial army became very brutal and engaged in massive extrajudicial killings at every opportunity. During the 1966 crisis, a lot of people were killed. When Museveni was shot, 1969, a lot of people were killed. Throughout the reign of Amin, during the West Nile operation of 1981, during the operations in Ruero of 1981 to 1985, etc. So, the history of bad armies, that's what I am trying to bring to you. The history of bad armies for almost 400 years, from the time of the, I really pity some of our people, because when they talk as if Uganda started with the British. It's really amazing. Even if when Jesus was born, you were not there, but you know what happened. Somebody is saying that they were not there, but you are a Christian, but were you there when Jesus was born? or when Muhammad was born, were you there? We belong to things even if we are not there. We inherit. We call it heritage. So there is the Christian heritage, there is the Islamic heritage, but there is also the Great Lakes heritage. We are people of this area from time immemorial, and we shall be here forever. That's why, therefore, I am disturbing you by unearthing this history, because you don't have time to know about yourselves. You know about everybody else except yourselves. That is why from NASA, so what I'm telling you all this, to bring you to the present. That's why from NASA, the NRA, the National Resistance Army, the NRM, and the UPDF made it their core point to build a detribalized, disciplined, and ideological national army. During the 8 years of the anti-Amin struggle, this was one of the major points on which we disagreed with Mzee Obote and the UPC while we were in Tanzania. The climax of our disagreements and different viewpoints was reached in October 1978 when Idi Amin attacked Tanzania. At that time, the UPC had a force of about 1,000 people at Kigwa in Tabora, Tanzania. Remnants of the 1972 anti-Amin debacle. There was that invasion in which I also took part of 1972, which was defeated. Now, these 1,000, mainly Achoris, who were at Tabora, were remnants of that force of 1972. So these are the ones the late Tito Kero and Oito Jok came with to the front line at the end of 1978. On our side, we had a group of 28 cadres whom I had spent 2 years training at Montepuez, Mozambique, plus a few individuals we had trained earlier, including Ahmed Seguya, who had been part of the 1972 group that we had trained in farm number 17 in Nachingwea, Tanzania. These were trained for us by Frelimo of Mozambique with the permission of Mwalimu Nyerere. I arrived on the front line on the 23rd of December, 1978, with some of this group. By the 11th of April, 1979, when Idi Amin fled Kampala, we had a force of 9,000 fighters and cadres, while the UPC comrades only had a force of 1,900, including the original 1,000 that had come from Tanzania. Now you need to study that. Why is it that we who had a smaller force, I had only 28 fighters when I arrived on the front line on the 23rd of December 1978. The UPC had 1,000. But by the 11th of April, when Amin collapsed, our force had grown to 9,000, while the UPC was still only 1,900, including the original 1,000. So you should study that and know why. The rest, as you know, is history. By 1986, the contending two lines, ours, because there were two lines, there were two lines of thinking. We were saying we need to build a detribalized ideological army. But our brothers were saying, no, politics kwa jeshi mbaya sana, they should build askari, just askari na askari tu, that he should not have any ideology in his head, and he should just be a soldier. So, by 1986, the issue had been resolved, as you saw. By 1986, the contending two lines, ours of building an ideological, detribalized, a national army on the one hand, versus our brothers of relying on sectarian ones on the other, had resolved itself in favor of the former. Militarily gaining the upper hand by the forces of patriotism also helped the politics of the country. The previous politics of sectarianism of religion and tribe was replaced by the politics of patriotism and Pan-Africanism. Nevertheless, even today, some elements still try to revive the politics of sectarianism. That, however, is a subject of another day. On the military and security side, a national patriotic force had been born, and Uganda has never looked back again. Having an ideologically patriotic, Pan-Africanist and transformational army, different from the Barusura of Kabarega or Abamboa of Mutesa I, or Enyena of Ntare 5 of Ankole, or the King's African Rifles of the British, or the Uganda Army and the UNLA of post-independence, only solved the problems of ideology and composition of the National Defense Force. So, what did we solve in 1986? We solved the problem of how should the army be composed. Should it be composed democratically by recruiting from all parts, all the districts, equitably, or should we recruit it the way it was recruited before? That one was resolved. You see for yourselves. The other day I was in Ajumani, and the children there were complaining that they could not fulfill their quota because they had each district has got a quota. When there's recruitment, each district must bring so many people. But when I went to Ajumani, the children there were complaining that when they were checked, the blood, many were found with hepatitis, and they were not admitted. So they couldn't fill their quota. That's what they were talking. That's what they were complaining about. Then I said, you look for the ones who don't have hepatitis until you fulfill your quota. So, by 1986, what was resolved was how should the army be composed and what should be the ideas in the heads of these soldiers. And our answer was it must be composed nationally through quota recruitment from all districts, and it must be ideological, not partisan, but ideological. It could not, by itself, solve the problem of the professional and technical competencies of this new force. It could also not solve the strategic formula of the defense of the country. So, that one solved the issue of composition and ideology. But how about the strategy of the country? How are we to defend the country? Starting with the strategic formula, our line had been clarified by 1991. You remember at that time we had a huge army of 100,000. But when we analyzed, we said, no, this too big an army is not good. It will undermine the security of the country. So you remember, those who are old enough, but even the young ones would have heard about it, that we decided to reduce the army from 100,000 to only 40,000 that time. And we laid off a big number of soldiers. They were not happy. They were not happy, but we had to put our foot down and say, no, too many human beings are not good for the defense of the country. And I will show you why. I will show you why. So by 1991, the strategic line of how to defend the country had been resolved. The strategic formula for the defense of the country was to have a small standing army that is very well equipped, backed by a large reserve of local defense units, LDUs, vigilantes, arrow boys, crime preventers, whatever name you call them. These are Ugandans between the age of 18 and the age of 65 years. Because I checked with the Director of Legal Affairs in the Army today, before I came to give the speech, I said, in order to belong to the LDUs, how old should I be? He told me you must be 18 years, otherwise you will be a minor. And I said, how old should I be? Apparently, these army people did not put the... So I decided to put the one of 65 myself, assuming that maybe beyond 65, he may not be able to run very well. So, the reserve is comprised of this large number of these people. These are Ugandans between the age of 18 and the age maybe of 65 that in peacetime have military training but continue with their normal economic or professional activities. If there is need on account of insecurity or war, a necessary portion of them will be called up to back the standing army, the police force, and the intelligence services so as to defeat the challenge. Indeed, this strategy was used against COIN in the north and ADF in the west. It is a reliable and affordable strategy for younger states still building their capacity. Even developed countries, such as Israel, use this strategy. It is therefore foolish and a waste of time for anybody to think that he or she can destabilize Uganda using weapons. We have an all-weather capacity to prevail in any war of aggression against us, any terrorist campaign against the country, or any crime wave. Since, however, calling up of manpower from the reserve involves spending more money on security and away from development, we are always hesitant to use this method of calling up the reserves. Human beings are more expensive to maintain compared to machines. Human beings need breakfast, they need lunch, supper, and some tea at intervals. They need medicine, clothes, housing, schooling for children, transport, entertainment, etc. And they have social issues, such as burying relatives who die, etc., etc. The machines, on the other hand, apart from the capital costs of buying them and some maintenance costs, they only make demands on the system when you use them. So a human being, whether you use him or not, he will be eating. Even if there is no war, the fellow must eat. But for the machine, you can pack it, you only use it when you switch it on. The machines only make demands on the system when you use them, driving them, flying them if they are planes, firing them if they are guns. You can even oil them and pack them until you need them. You can have the equipment, you oil it, you wrap it, and you store it. You only get it out when you want to use it, so that you don't spend anything on it other than the original cost of purchase. It is called snowballing them when you wrap it and you keep it. Since these machines are complicated, the crews to man them when there is need should be trained in advance. Such crews need a lot of time to train them to the required proficiency levels. Unlike the riflemen and the machine gunners, the more complex systems need long periods of training. Therefore, these crews always form part of the standing army. In more advanced countries, such as Israel, however, the reserve force also has these crews of the advanced systems. In our case, because of the budget, we cannot manage to have pilots who are trained and are in the reserve. Because in Israel, you can have an engineer who is working in or a doctor, let's say take a doctor in a hospital. he goes and trains to become a pilot of a fighter plane. He qualifies, goes back to his work as a doctor. When there is need, he's called from the operational table. But he goes yearly for refresher course because he must keep going. But that is all budget. To train him, to go for refresher course is all budget. Because of our budget, we are not able to train these highly qualified people in the reserve. We only train the ones who are in the standing army, in the army which is in the barracks. In our case, the limiting factor is the cost of training these crews. That is why, for now, we confine ourselves to the crews of the standing army. Apart from the technical crews, you also need a large number of officers and non-commissioned officers, sergeants, who can promptly exercise command within the more battalions, brigades, and divisions that would call up in case of need. These, again, take time. They cannot conveniently be trained in a short time. They should therefore be prepared before as part of the standing arrangement. So therefore, how we plan to defend your country, that's why you hear that we don't have United Nations to defend us. And we shall never have United Nations to defend us. We are not Kateyambas. Kateyambas are the disabled people. But how do you defend yourself? How do we defend our country when we don't have a big budget? If you look at the budget of UPDF and you compare it with the budgets, the minister should bring these figures to the MPs. In dollar terms, it's not clarified. The total is well known. What is clarified is what you spend on. But the total is read here every year. I think this year it is what? Now, if you take that money and you put it in dollar terms, and you compare it with the budget of other countries, you will be amazed. How can Uganda be able to have a strong army with such little money? They should get the figures and compare with other countries. You will see. But how did we do it? This is how we did it. We said, let's have a small army of well-educated people, because education is also a factor, of well-educated people, well-equipped, well-trained, but let us also have a large reserve of the groups I've mentioned here. In the past, we used to call it mchaka. You know that type, mchaka. That was training our reserve. LDUs, vigilantes in Karamoja, crime preventers, border 2010, that's another. I don't think those were properly trained. So, but the standing army, as you need to listen carefully, because we should be very clear, especially you, the leaders, but even other people in the country. Because sometimes I see people worried, this one, those who are doing bad things are endangering themselves. We shall crush them. They have eyes, they can't see. They have ears, they can't hear. They don't know that they are playing with something very, very dangerous. Because all these things we have thought about. There's nothing we have not thought about. So the plan is you have a small army of well-educated people, well-equipped, with a large number of technical crews, because you cannot train a pilot in 6 months. It takes a lot of time to train a pilot, to train a tank operator. To train, those, they take a lot of time. A large number of technical crews, a large number of officers. You have more officers than you need. You have surplus officers and NCOs. Now, when there is need, you call up the other people, the LDUs, because those ones are only dealing with this, the lower level technology equipment, rifle, machine gun. That is like throwing stones. You don't have too much technology, you just need how to aim properly. But when they are called, they find that you already have the more difficult to train. They are already there. And you can expand the army the way you want. Now, that was part of the problem with Idi Amin. Because he had that small army of his, of 20,000, and he would go around thinking that he has got an army. But when he attacked Tanzania, which was part, like our thinking, the Tanzanians were able to mobilize. Their own army was also small in peacetime. But because they had this system, the one I'm telling you, they were able to mobilize an army of 45,000, plus with the Ugandans who were more than 10,000. So we ended up having an army of almost 60,000 dealing with the small army of Idi Amin of 20,000. They could not cope. They could not cope. So, having dealt with the strategic concept of a small standing army, with a large number of trained officers, NCOs, and technical crews, with a large reserve of trained riflemen and machine gunners, we now need to look at the professional and technical preparedness and adequacy of the army and the other security forces, because they complement one another. We must also look at the equipment and technology of these forces, especially the standing army, as well as the sister security forces, must develop capacity to cover the whole spectrum of threats in terms of skills and equipment. It is when there is an element in the whole spectrum that you have not dealt with that the country will experience a problem on account of that gap. On account of obvious reasons, I do not want to go into details in some of these subjects. I can, however, give one example. The Lakwena co-insurgency started in 1986, August 22nd, when they attacked battalion number 28 under Jet Mwebaze at Bibia. They were defeated. However, the insurgency, although not winning, dragged on until 2003, when they were totally defeated. In the 17 years of that insurgency, were to neutralize whatever threat they deployed. Apart from the standard infantry weapons that we used to suppress them, we are to neutralize the threat of landmines. Because, like in that case, in the fight, there's a coin went to Sudan, got landmines. Oh, then he thought now, how will this NRA, UPDF solve the problem of landmines? If you can't drive from Guru to Pabo without being blown up by landmines, how would you manage? Are you not going to fail? So for them, they thought they had a big problem for us. Mines are the things you put in the ground and they blow you up, the bombs which are in the ground, which they plant on the roads. But fortunately, how did we solve that problem? By acquiring the mine-resistant mambas and buffaloes, as well as the chabe, mine detecting and demining traders. So what was our answer? So, oh, you have got mines from Bashir. Okay. We have an answer for you. So we went to, by that time South Africa had become free. So we bought these mambas which you see. That mamba has got a V-shaped bottom with a strong armor. Even if it steps on a landmine, only the tires will be damaged. The people inside, they will continue, no problem. So, and then we had another system which could detect and remove the mine. So therefore, the poison which those people had got from Sudan, thinking that it would make us fail, was now neutralized. The enemy was hoping to block the use of the roads using these mines. But those mines were now useless for them. And then we would follow you, because when you plant, you normally leave a trail. So you plant, we discover, we follow you, and we deal with you. So we deal with your mine, and also we deal with you. So in the end, you run out of mines, you also run out of bodies. Lack of air force also caused the dragging on of that conflict. People walking on foot on behalf of the government were fighting other people walking on foot on behalf of the terrorists. That was another problem. The government had more manpower and guns, but the slow movement of those troops meant the fight was inconclusive and protracted. That is why we needed a fast-moving element in the equation, the Air Force, especially the gunships. The cabinet meeting in Ugulu agreed to my proposal of cutting 23% from each ministry in terms of budget in order to start the building of the Air Force. At the Battle of Apopong in Amuria, the combined arms of the infantry and the Air Force, plus other elements of detecting where the enemy is, reconnaissance, broke the capacity of the enemy to resist. That was the end of the rural-based terrorism in northern Uganda. In the West, the ADF was finally defeated in 2007 in the Semlik National Park and the Kijura escarpment, where they had infiltrated from Congo. One of the additional elements here were the sharpshooting commandos that decimated ADF. Now, recently, to give you another example, which is not written here, the Rwenzori Mountains. You know that area is complicated because it is very high and cold. So we had now to create a mountain warfare brigade, the ones who specialize in mountain warfare. So if you think you can cause any trouble in the mountain, you are just wasting your time. Because we can deal with you quickly and decisively. Hence, as we stand today, almost all the elements needed to defeating terrorism in the rural areas are in place. Without going into details, these involve detecting, locating, and destroying an organized group trying to fight guerrilla warfare in the forests, mountains, or bush quickly. This I can tell you that this is where we stand now. That's why you hear that ADF is in Congo, but they cannot enter here. They know the address of Uganda. But they cannot come here. That is why, since 2007, has had peace from corner to corner for the first time in the last 500 years. I have made this statement before, but because people are not serious, they don't listen to the words. This is the first time in 500 years this area you call Uganda has had peace from corner to corner. We never had peace during the time of the kings. We never had time during the time of the peace in the time of the British in the whole Uganda. Not after independence. Even under the NRM, that's what I'm saying, that from 2007, I'm not saying from 1986, because even after NRM we did not have peace in the whole country. It was only in 2007 when we defeated ADF, having defeated COIN, having disarmed the cattle rustlers in Karamoja. That's for the first time in 500 years, and I'm standing here authoritatively. I'm not an immigrant from anywhere. And I'm telling you that this is the first time we have had peace corner to corner in the last 500 years. So people who are not serious really need to listen carefully. Indeed, rural-based insurgency and cattle rustling were totally defeated and cannot resurface. That now left the issue of crime, both in the rural areas, the towns, and along the highways. Remember, crime is different from war. There is war, there is crime. Finally, back to the army. Our strategy is to have a small army with a large number of officers NCOs and technical crews, and also with enough equipment, but backed by a large reserve force. We have carried out the audit and have identified what needs to be done, and we are working on it. Our capacity is robust, created over the last 50 years. We have abundant capacity to guarantee the security of Uganda. All the criminals, including those hiding in Congo, will pay for their sins. Whatever is done in hiding, it will be proclaimed on the rooftops. It says in the book of Luke, chapter 12, verse 2 to 3 as follows. There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What you have spoken in the dark will be heard in the daylight, and what you have whispered in the inner rooms will be proclaimed on the housetops. End of course, and I thank you.
The anthems.